How's it going, folks? If you're wondering why I'm counting on my hands, because that is the number 6, also the same number of runs that the Mets scored today, and their series victory here against the Miami Marlins. Folks, hope everyone's having a phenomenal Monday to start off their week here. Guys, we have played a deep dive as I'll be breaking down everything that there is to know. My initial reaction to the latest Mets victory, the latest Mets series victory here, again, winning 3 of 4 against these Miami Marlins. What transpired in today's game, and of course, what were the positives and negatives, along with some keynotes and updates that I have here on the graphic for you guys regarding health statuses of some players and also some minor league signings that the Mets have made of recent over the past hour or so that's been reported. A lot of deep dive, very excited, pumped up. The Mets are now, again, 21 games above 500. They continue to roll, and we will see how rivals in the division do, like the Braves, who start a rough stretch now out west against the Giants, then the Dodgers. Phillies, will see how they do as well among other teams. But guys, huge series win. I said I need to see this Mets team win at minimum 3 of 4 against the Marlins, and they did exactly that. So they're on a high note now as they will be heading out for their 2-game series starting tomorrow night, which we'll, of course, be covering on the channel for series preview and, of course, post-game coverage live against the Houston Astros. But more than anything, I hope everyone, again, is having a phenomenal day. Hope everyone had a phenomenal holiday weekend for, of course, Juneteenth if you were celebrating. Same thing with it being Father's Day. A lot of positives that came out from this beautiful weather weekend here on the East Coast. And I'm just so pumped up knowing, again, that the Mets were able to leg out 3 of 4 victories in this 4-game set against Miami. So for everyone here in the live show, thank you guys so much for being here. Make sure to smash that like and subscribe on if you're just chiming in and you enjoy this kind of Mets content. Help us get to 100 likes for the first short-term goal and help us get to 16K subs for the next short-term goal here on the channel. And guys, also let me know how the connection will be throughout the show. I did some different things, how my brother helped me out while he was in town over the weekend, and it looks like I may have figured out my connection issues I may have been having. So fingers crossed, we'll see what transpires. No less, let's get some W's in the chat right now, folks, after another strong Mets victory. But more than anything, I do see a donation that I will be addressing. Actually, I'll do that now. Yoshima, thank you so much for that. Hype in the chat for Yoshima with the $5 dono. Yoshima says, Mets cooked up some seafood this weekend on a Houston, send those Stros to the moon. Fingers crossed, right? No less. I love the Mets that they didn't say they didn't catch and release. They catch and cooked these Marlins, that being in the Miami Marlins, as a matter of fact. So love the wording there from Yoshima. Great member. Thank you so much for the donation. Appreciate that. And guys, let me know your initial reactions to the latest Mets victory. How are you feeling? But more than anything, guys, before we deep dive everything that there is to know about this game, I think it's important that we break down, folks, what is going on with the Mets right now and what transpired today before the game, during the game, and even after the game, as you see here with the updates. So let's just start from the top, make our way down, and then, of course, we'll also be getting into everything that you need to know about this Mets victory. That will, of course, be the bulk of the discussion. Then from there, for people in the live show, I'll continue to start answering your comments, questions, and concerns. But for people on replay, I'll cut things off after we break down everything that needs to be broken down here. But starting off, let's talk about some keynotes and updates for the Mets, guys. It starts off with Dominic Smith was called up, a late call-up that we saw, at least reported by the Mets today, because Seth Lugo, who unfortunately gave up that grand salami to the rookie yesterday for the Miami in their 6-2 victory against the Mets, Lugo is now no longer with the team for a couple days. He's having a kid. He's on the, I always say the list name wrong. I can't even say it right. Pat, I can't even say it. You know what I mean. No, that starts with a P. I don't know why I always mess up the wording. I apologize on how to actually say it. Paternity. I think that's how you say it, right? The paternity list. No less. Lugo will be gone for a couple days as he's dealing with, of course, having another kid. Congratulations to him. But now we have a couple more guys that look like that they could be on the paternity list or the next couple days, if not right after today's game. And that starts with the guy who definitely stood out to me, today's number 1 star, in my opinion, for Warriors top 5. And that was David Pearson. David Pearson had a phenomenal start for the Mets. Wasn't the prettiest, but definitely was a bulldog there, grinding out those innings I'll be discussing here in a second. But him, along with Jeff McNeil, and McNeil, of course, has an update as well on his health. Both of those guys are expecting kids any day now, of course, new childbirth. So we can expect more than likely both of them to be on the paternity list over the next couple days. And congratulations to them and in advance as well. But yeah, so a couple more guys that are expecting kids that will be away from the Mets for at minimum a couple days in the near future. And then we will go from there, folks. And then we'll go. Yeah, that's about it. Let me just take some water quick. Again, I was getting everything set up, and I'm glad that the show's looking good so far. And hype in the chat, guys. Let me hear your thoughts again on today's Mets victory. And for people on replay, let me know your thoughts down below. How you feel about today's Mets victory? How you feel about Jeff McNeil's injury? How bad do you think it'll be? And also let me know who was the biggest standout for you today, not just in the series, but specifically in today's 6-0 win against the Miami Marlins. But okay, guys, so we talked about McNeil, Pearson. They are expecting kids as well. But now let's get into, of course, the Mets. They just made a minor league signing. It was broken by Andy Martino. Andy has me blocked on Twitter because he has everyone blocked, so I had to find out just by typing his name on Google. But I did see that the Mets did sign former New York Met killer, believe it or not, that being an Ender Inciarte, the speed demon in the outfield, a strong glove, not known for his bat. Again, more known for his speed and his defense. Veteran outfielder signed a minor league deal with the Mets today. He will report to AAA Syracuse. So the Mets, who of course signed another speedster that has a strong glove in the outfield over the past 2 weeks, in Gore, who actually was part of the World Series championship winning team for the Braves last year. No less, we have Inciarte, another speed demon, kind of like a Jankowski type, but maybe not as high upside because Jankowski really looked good so far with the Mets up until his injury this year. Mets just add another veteran to add to the outfield with all the moves that they're constantly making. Maybe we'll see Ender get some at-bats in the near future. I hope not, just because if we do, then that means that something's going on with the roster, not in a positive fashion. No less, I like the veteran pickup. Again, brings more depth to AAA Syracuse, and I cannot complain there. But the biggest thing, guys, that you see from the list today is the fact that, yes, Jeff McNeil exited today's game with injury, and you saw there he exited today's game after getting a run scored because of a wild pitch that Jacob Stalling, the Miami Marlins catcher, could not handle. McNeil trod into home, and right as he got close to home plate, he slowed down a little bit, and you can tell that he was uncomfortable, walked his way into the locker room, and Luis Guillorme came in and looked great at the plate as well, along with elite defense per usual later in the game for the Mets. And of course, it has now been reported that Jeff McNeil's injury to this point is right hamstring tightness. Now, in case you guys don't know, Jeff McNeil has dealt with hamstring injuries. He had a right hamstring tightness injury in 2019. He had a left hamstring tightness injury that he had in 2021, along with Michael Conforto, both in the same game in that series against the Tampa Bay Rays. I remember like it was yesterday. McNeil tried to play through it a little bit more, and that led to a further strain, if I'm not mistaken, that had him out for at least a month. And that definitely hurt how he was progressing last year, a lot with his poor approach at the plate. So fingers crossed for McNeil as we await further information, imaging, whatever it may be. I will discuss this further if we don't find out on today's show, then definitely in tomorrow's show as we break down the series preview against the Astros on his health. But fingers crossed that's nothing more than tightness. I would imagine at this juncture that we may very well not see McNeil for the entirety of the Houston Astros trip because, again, the series starts tomorrow. It's going to be a long flight, and he, again, is looking like he's going to have a kid any day now. So for all those reasons, I wouldn't be opposed. I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest if Jeff McNeil maybe doesn't even travel with the Mets out to Houston, stays home, tries to heal up, hoping that's nothing serious to his injury, and he can avoid an IL stint for when the Mets are back in town after that matchup in Houston against the Astros. But again, it's a wait and see. It's a fluid situation. The only upside about this injury for McNeil is that it isn't the same hamstring that he hurt in 2021, because the one that he hurt in 2021 was his left hammy, not his right hammy. So they are different hamstrings, which is a positive, but that really is the only positive I would say. No less, fingers crossed, that's nothing serious with Jeff. I will keep you guys up to date, and we will, of course, discuss further if we find out more information on his injury in the stats over the next 24 hours here on the channel. I definitely want to know what your reaction is to this, guys, regarding Jeff McNeil and, of course, tweaking his hammy there as he went home off of a wild pitch to get a run scored. But no less, now let's break down this Mets game. We're 10 minutes into the show now. I appreciate everyone that's watching live or in replay. And like I said, I will be getting to everyone's comments, questions, and concerns here in the live show shortly. I just want to break down everything that there's to know about this game because the Mets won in a strong fashion, 6-0. That by all means did not start off pretty. We had Trevor Rogers, the young southpaw, on the mound for the Miami Marlins, and Trevor entered today's game against right-handed hitters, giving up basically a 284 average, an 840 plus OPS. Not 8 home runs, 24 runs scored in only 12 games against right-handers so far this year. And the Mets, of course, 7 of their 9 hitters to start today's game were batting from the right side of the plate. And to start off the game, the Mets went 1 for 9 with no infield singles. They had no singles out of the infield. They had 1 infield single in the first by Lindor there, but 5 strikeouts, and it wasn't looking pretty. 1 RBI, that was a walk for Canada that you saw there in the first. I'll be describing in a second, but the Mets didn't start off pretty, and they really didn't look good against Rogers for the most part, but they were able to tack on more runs in different ways with RBI sac flies, hit by pitches, walks, and of course, wild pitches as well. So the Mets did a lot of different things. Then they jumped on the bullpen late in the game that we saw against Miami, which definitely helped make the Mets feel comfortable not having to have Edwin Diaz in for a save situation because it was non-save after having a 6-run lead there through 8 innings. But guys, let's talk about this game. We had David Pearson on the bump for the Mets, and David only threw 7 first pitch strikes to all the batters that he faced today. He was behind in basically almost all counts that he was facing with these Marlins hitters. But what did David Pearson do extremely well today, and he deserves all the credit in the world for? He got out of every single jam that he started. And the first had 1 or 2 guys on, got out of that without a problem. Then the second had 2 guys on with no out, got out of that without a problem, including some back-to-back strikeouts. And the third, another situation, 2 guys on, no outs, and got out of it without a problem. He was literally like Houdini out there, getting crucial double plays or just back-to-back strikeouts to end the inning for a Miami team that started off aggressive and was taking some solid pitches against Pearson early in this game. That was massive for Pearson to have the outing that he did. One of his best starts of the year, all things considered, even with him being not consistent with his walks and just overall his command of the zone. 5.1 innings pitch, 6 hits, 0 earned runs, 2 walks, 7 strikeouts on exactly 100 pitches. You love to see that from David. Again, wasn't the prettiest outing, but he got out of the jams better than you could have ever asked for. And that's huge. And that tells you a lot about David Pearson and his progression so far this year, which has been, again, a solid start to the year for him when he's pitching either as a starter or a long reliever. And this will definitely make the Mets feel a little bit more comfortable about certain matchups going forward with him, as with the injuries to Tyler McGill and still waiting for Max Scherzer to be back in the rotation, even though Max, of course, will be having a game in Binghamton with the AA Mets tomorrow, with the Rumble Ponies, I should say, this Tuesday. After that, he may be back with the Mets as soon as this Sunday against Miami, no less, for the next matchup against the team of the Miami Marlins. But even with all these injuries, David Pearson, more often than not, has been solid for the Mets, has kept them in games, and he definitely pitched great today in a lot of ways for them. But offensively for the Mets, as I just discussed, it started in the first, because what have the Mets done so well all year? I emphasize this every single time, and I will say it more. They just get guys on base and they score early. If the Mets aren't scoring within the first 2 runs of the game, I do not love the Mets' chances of winning a game. And that was on full display yesterday when they got carved up by Sandy Alcantara and were doing absolutely nothing against him through the first 4 or 5 plus innings. When that happened, I wasn't feeling confident, and that, of course, led to the Mets' loss. And today, they had WardyNYM lead things off, lefty on lefty, no problem. Got himself a leadoff double. Then Starling Marte reaches on base with an error. Then from there, Francisco Lindor gets an infield single. Mark Canha will then get an RBI walk, but that would be the only run scored there in the first. Bases low, no outs. You want to see the Mets do better. They didn't. Pete Alonso and J.D. Davis both struck out on fastballs in the zone. Just looked silly. And again, I don't know what it is about the Mets, especially against Trevor Rogers. Even with Rogers having an 8+ ERA over his past month plus of starts entering today's game, they were not able to jump on him nearly to the liking that I would have seen from a righty hitter to a lefty pitcher perspective, but that was the case. No less than Mets tack on 1 run we see there, and Jeff McNeil is day-to-day per Buck Showalter, in case you guys are wondering. That was just a report I saw from Mike Puma. So Jeff McNeil, we'll see if he's in the Houston Astros series. I'm not going to get my hopes up. I'm not going to be concerned if he's not in the Astros series. I would just like to emphasize that. I think rest him up. Don't risk anything. If he's ready to go and great, then awesome. But the last thing the Mets need is another situation like last year where Jeff had tightness, tried to play through it, and then was out for like a month on the IL. It's not worth that risk, so play things awfully cautiously with this soon-to-be 2022 All-Star second baseman / left fielder, because he's been that good, so consistent defensively and offensively as one of the best hitters, contact hitters in baseball. But then, as I said, folks, we get to the second inning, and that's where Pearson gets out of a jam with 2 on, no out there. That was fantastic with a couple strikeouts. Then in the third, you get Birdie with an infield single, Jazz Chisholm with a hit by pitch, Soler strikes out, and that was another situation where the Mets were able to get out of a 2 on, no out situation. Then the fourth, that was David Pearson's first 1-2-3 inning of the game, folks, including a strikeout on that one. He was looking good. Pitch count was a little high early on, but again, got out of his own jams, which was massive for this Mets team that didn't look pretty offensively for a large sum of this game, really until the 8th inning, where they finally got themselves a hit that led to RBIs, and not an RBI sac fly, not a walk, not a wild pitch or anything of that nature. But in the bottom of the fourth, J.D. Davis is walked. Jeff McNeil gets an oppo single, and then he turned double because it was just poor shift alignment and throw in there by the outfielder for Miami. Escobar gets an RBI sac fly, and then from there, McNeil again scores on the wild pitch that led to his exit because of his injury with his hamstring. Then the 5th inning, folks, we see David Pearson gets out of a jam with a double play. Beautifully turned double play that started there from Eduardo Escobar at third base. And then in the bottom of the 5th, WardyNYM gets a single. Starling Marte gets a single. And Pete Alonso continues to tack on his league-leading RBI count. Now I believe at 65 RBIs, if my memory is not mistaken, with an RBI sac fly. Mets tack on at that point might add another run to their lead. Then the 6th inning, the final inning that we see David Pearson in, he has a couple guys on with 1 out. He exits the game. Again, really strong performance from David today. Adam Ottavino comes in, and Adam does absolutely fantastic. Ottavino gets himself a crucial double play to end the inning with ease. And now Ottavino, after that in the 7th, would also have a scoreless inning pitch. No strikeouts today by Adam, but for no problem, he gave up 1 hit, no earned runs. That's why he's in my top 5. Ottavino, guys, has yet to surrender a run here in the month of June. He has pitched 7 scoreless innings so far in June, and in total of June and May, has only surrendered 1 measly run over 20 innings pitched, folks. Talking about consistent, that has been Adam Ottavino. I know a lot of people like to gripe about how he handled, again, runners on base when he was coming in for a starter earlier in the season, including myself. But Ottavino, as of late, really over the past 2 months now, has been absolute money for the Mets bullpen. And they need that from Ottavino, who, again, has been one of the better relievers in all baseball. You might not think that, but if you look at all of his numbers, his advanced numbers, and everything where he's in the percentiles for Baseball Savant, yeah, Ottavino has definitely been good. The biggest gripe with him has been the same thing throughout the majority of his career, and that is his walk rate. As long as he can get that down, which he didn't allow any walks today, then he is going to be absolutely nasty with that wipeout slider down away. Frisbee slider, really, I should say, and then that fastball, that 1-2 mix, mixing it up. But then for the Mets in the bottom of the 7th, folks, Brendan Nimmo gets a base knock. Marte reaches on a fielder's choice. Nimmo was out there. Lindor reaches on a fielding error, and then everyone's safe. And then Pete Alonso grounds into a double play to end the inning. The Mets didn't score there, but it was nice to see, again, that they were still working things for the bullpen of Miami, as Trevor Rogers was done after only 5 innings today, surrendering 4 runs, 3 earned because of the errors, 7 strikeouts, and has still a sub-6 ERA on the year. But in the 8th inning, folks, that is where things got really frustrating. J.D. Davis, as you see here in the highlights, hit by pitch, the 50th hit by pitch that the Mets have faced so far this year, by far the most in baseball. And what was really concerning, again, fingers crossed that JD's okay. I'm assuming he might get imaging. He stayed in the game, was running the bases perfectly fine. But JD got hit right on his left hand, the exact same spot right up in around here where he got hit and injured his hand, broke part of his hand last season, which was the biggest injury and ailment for JD all of the 2021 year. That led for a lack of consistency, a lack of home run power, just a lack of great approach because he's dealing with a nagging hand injury for the entirety of the season when he sustained that hit by pitch in 2021 in May of last year. So fingers crossed that JD, it's nothing serious on his end. Again, he stayed in the game, which is positive, so hopefully we have nothing to worry about there. But Hanser Ferengi, there's so many bones and, different type of ailments that you can get just from a hit by pitch. I was absolutely furious. He was pissed off. Buck was. Again, the Mets continuing to get hit by pitch more than any other team in baseball, and it doesn't look like it's stopping anytime soon, regardless of the fact of us wanting it to or not. But then after that JD hit by pitch, Luis Gourmet got his second base knock of the day. That's why he's in my top 5. Gourmet coming in for McNeil halfway through the game, went 2 for 2, and ended up getting a run scored because runners advanced because of a wild pitch with 2 guys on less than 2 out. And then Eduardo Escobar, who was 0 for 23, entering his play appearance there in the 8th, gets finally a 2 RBI base knock single to drive in a couple runs to give the Mets not just a 4-0 victory, but a 6-0 lead in ultimate victory. That would again be Escobar snapping an 0 for 23 skid, had an RBI sac fly earlier in the game, ended the game with 3 RBIs total, and that's why he's my number 2 star. Great for Eddie. I really hope that he can continue to find his swing better because he has had the worst luck so far this year. Just a terrible approach a lot of times after a strong first month. Did not hit at all in May, and then we've seen him up and down in June from the West Coast trip to coming back home, and of course him having those health issues with his vision and the headaches a couple days ago that had him out for the majority of the Brewers series. No less, I'm really happy for Eddie, and I hope for his sake that this is a step in the right direction for him. I'm getting more consistent because he did not look good yesterday. I'm pretty sure he went 0 for 5 yesterday against a concert too. Just has not been consistent by any stretch, and the Mets definitely need a little bit more production from him for a guy who, again, is known for home run power, and that's something that the Mets simply have not gotten much of at all with them through the first upwards of 70 games now here in this season. But folks, the Mets then, after we saw Ottavino with 1.2 scoreless after Pearson exited, Drew Smith had 1 inning scoreless, gave up 1 hit, no prom, no strikeouts, no hits, no earned runs. And then Yoem Lopez had a couple walks and had a strikeout and came in and got the non-save situation there in the 9th for the Mets to give them this 6-0 victory. So folks, continue to let me know your thoughts in the comments. Again, I'm going to be addressing all your comments, questions, and concerns here shortly. I would just like to expand a little bit further on the Mets and why this was important. Mark, I got Gigi and Stormy watching on. Don't you worry. I'll try to bring in a bunny before the end of the show in case you would like to see them. Continue to smash that like and subscribe button, guys, if you guys are enjoying the latest live show here in WardyNYM as we break down a strong 6-0 victory for the Mets. But I would like to make note of a couple of things, both positives and negatives for the Mets in today's game and this series and now going forward before I wrap things up for people on replay. Okay, folks, a couple things I really want to emphasize are one, the Mets, they got worked by Trevor Rogers really well. And it was one of those things that was frustrating because Alonso, Canna, pardon me, JD, same thing with Escobar. I mean, it felt like everyone, Marte, they were all swinging right through fastballs. And you saw Rogers utilizing his slider heavy and then going back to his fastball down the pipe, averaging around 95 to 97 miles per hour. And the Mets just simply couldn't hit it. It was just one of those things where they couldn't get a good read. I don't know what it is against the Mets, against lefties too, because the Mets have done better as of late this month against southpaws. It's still been a concern for them. And normally when you see a matchup for a guy that, again, has a roughly 300 average and over 800 OPS against righties so far this year, you would think that Trevor Rogers would be able to be hit off the tee a little bit more. I don't know if Rogers got that influence that he had when he had that amazing start against the Mets and the Marlins 1-0 victory to start the season in Citi Field last year. Remember, Jazz Chisholm had that solo bomb off of Jacob deGrom, and that was the only run scored in that game. Rogers, again, carved the Mets up over, I would assume, at least 7 scoreless that game. He was simply dominant. He looked more like himself that we saw from last year, not the Trevor Rogers that has been ailing so much so far this year, only having to this point 4 or 5 strong starts out of the 12 to 13 he's had at this point. No less, I want to see the Mets do better against these lefties, especially a guy like Rogers, who was by all means hittable, and they just did not get enough there in the first. Thankfully, again, what has been so elite about the Mets offense this year is that even if they aren't, say, consistently hitting or able to do well when it matters most of runners in scoring position, they are at minimum getting themselves a couple sac flies. Again, the Mets didn't hit sac flies at all last year. Now they got 2 RBI sac flies in today's game. They scored a run by just a great play approach there that we saw from Marcana to bring the first run of the game with a walk, RBI walk. And then Jeff McNeil, strong base running, taking advantage of the poor pitch by Rogers that we saw there to lead McNeil to score on the wild pitch. And then, of course, that led to his injury exit. But point is that the Mets, even while they didn't look pretty today and didn't look necessarily pretty this entire series by a stretch, they still find ways to win. And even when they aren't completely on their game, they know that there are other ways to score runs. There are other ways to put the ball in play. Also taking advantage of the shift because the Marlins shifted heavy in this game, and the Mets by all means took full advantage, especially with their lefty hitters and Brandon Nimmo, Jeff McNeil, and also Luis Gourmet. All those guys are pulling either going dead center or going opposite field, which was very frustrating for a lot of the players there in Miami that were shifting a certain way on the Mets. I'm very happy with what I've been seeing from them. I want to see more. And now the Mets, again, have a strong series starting tomorrow night, 8:10 p.m. Eastern time against the Houston Astros. So a lot of positives to take away from the series, some negatives too. Again, wasn't as pretty as I would have liked, but again, not every game is going to be perfect. I'm aware of that, and wins always matter most, especially series wins more than anything. Mets, again, 21 games above 500 on the season. Really the best time that they've been rolling since the mid-'80s, right around the 86 team. If that's not telling you anything, then I don't know what is. I'm feeling confident about this team. Max Scherzer looks like he may be back as soon as this Sunday. A lot of positives in Mets land, and fingers crossed that, again, McNeil, it's just day-to-day, nothing more. And same thing, we'll see what is going to happen if McNeil and or Pearson will be away with the team soon on the list of having a child, because again, they're expecting day-to-day right now is when they're going to have a kid, so I expect them to be gone soon. Daniel Palka is currently with the team, but has yet to be activated. The veteran power bat, left-hand hitting power bat that's playing in the corner outfield or at DH has been raking over 15 home runs, over 40 RBIs in AAA Syracuse this year. Had a breakout year a couple years ago with the White Sox, but again, hasn't been the same since. At the MLB level, at least, has been crushing in AAA. A veteran presence with some pop that maybe the Mets will give some opportunity to, either by sending Nick Plummer down in the next day or two, or, of course, if we see stuff transpire here with guys that are expecting kids in the near future. No less, guys, that's everything that you need to know about today's game and all of the updates. So for people in the live show, let's get to answering all those comments, questions, and concerns. But for people on replay, this is where I'm going to cut things off. So make sure to let me know your thoughts down below. How do you feel after another strong victory, another strong series victory for the Mets, winning 6-0 over these Miami Marlins, have now won, again, 21 games above 500. The Mets are the second best team in baseball. The only team ahead of them is, again, the other team in New York, the team in the Bronx, the New York Yankees. Both teams in NY are cruising right now, and hopefully for the Mets' sake, at least that continues. But guys, let me know your thoughts down below. How do you feel after another strong series win? What players stood out the most to you, not just in today's game, but for the entirety of the series? All that fun stuff, make sure to let me know. People in the live show, let's go those comments now. But for people on replay, this is where we're going to end things.